Hello, YouTube. This is your boy, Mario Stanton. Man, I watched that State of the Union address last night. Trump's State of the Union address, his first one. And it was a parade of platitudes and the most fascist fucking plans that you can think of. It was disgusting. And let me, before we get really into the meat of this, let me say a few things first. Because I don't want anything to get twisted, because I'm going to make a lot of criticisms and I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea about any of my criticisms. First, my opinions are my own and they don't reflect any of the organizations or groups or whatever that I may have founded or any of those things that I'm involved in. So I just want to put that out there. The second thing is that I am not a Republican. I have never been a Republican, and more than likely I would never be a Republican. I am not even a conservative. I am a progressive. I am not a Democrat, although I vote Democrat most of the time. Again, I am a progressive. And if I can find a better candidate with a green or a socialist or anything like that, then I will vote for that candidate. It's not about party, it's about principle. It's about policy. So I don't want anybody to get it twisted, because I'm going to say some things that's going to piss off Democrats. I'm going to say some things that's going to piss off Republicans. I don't necessarily care about pissing off Republicans, because Republicans piss me off. I do, however, care about pissing off Democrats, only in the sense that I don't want Democrats to think that I'm at a total different end on a political spectrum than I am in real life. So, with that being stated, here is my assessment about the State of the Union address and the rebuttal by the Democrats and the other speeches that I watched. Now, last night I was at work and I watched the State of the Union address while I was at work. For people who don't know, I work as a first responder. And for whatever reason, I had plenty of downtime at work to be able to watch the speech in its entirety and the two of the rebuttals. Okay. So I will, the credit I would give to Donald Trump is that he stayed on whatever message they told him to stay on. He didn't mess up that message. He didn't go off the rails. He read well from the teleprompter. Now, I'm not trying to make fun of him for reading from a teleprompter. That's what people do when you give speeches. You read from a teleprompter. And that's how you stay focused. That's how you stay on message. And that's how, you basically wow people with your words. And everybody, maybe with the exception of Barack Obama and a couple other people, have speech writers to write their State of the Union addresses for them. So I'm not going to make fun of him on that. That's not the point. The point isn't him reading from a teleprompter or, being able to read or, whether he wrote the speech or not or anything like that. The point is the substance within the speech. And quite honestly, there was little of that, especially in the beginning. The beginning of the speech was filled with numerous, and I mean a multitude, a plethora of platitudes. It's almost like the Republican Party or the Trump speechwriter said, what are all the Republican Party talking points or whatever that I can throw into the first 15, 20, or even 30 minutes of this speech that would get like easy applause lines from the base of my party? What's the red meat that I can send to my party? So it was all this stuff about police and the flag and, you know, the national anthem and all that other bullshit. Now, if you notice, when he talked about law and order, when he talked about law enforcement, he said nothing about the FBI. He said everything about local police officers. He said a lot of things about ICE. He said a lot of things about military, but he said nothing about the FBI. He shunned the FBI. But the platitudes were just, it was just numerous. It was nauseating to watch, to listen to. This stuff about we stand during the national anthem was just another swipe at those NFL players who chose to take a knee for police brutality. Has nothing to do with the national anthem itself, even though the national anthem itself is problematic. You have a song that in the third verse, I know it's not sung, but in the third verse of this song, it celebrates slavery. And black people are not supposed to be remotely offended by this song. Black people are not supposed to feel a certain way about standing up and putting their hands over their hearts and everything for this fucking national anthem. You know, the Pledge of Allegiance is a whole nother thing. And the Pledge of Allegiance was, you know, if you don't know the history about the Pledge of Allegiance, it was instituted because of the Civil War. Basically, you pledge allegiance to the country of America. And, you know, it was a response to the rebellions of the South. So, you know, while Donald Trump sits up there and talks about the Pledge of Allegiance, he, again, supports the people who rebelled against the United States, who didn't pledge allegiance to the United States, who fought to make their own country. And this is, you know, a part of what's wrong with the rhetoric. On the surface, it may sound good to some. It sure as fuck didn't sound good to me. But I know that there's some people out there who masturbate to the flag and to God bless America and to, you know, my country 'tis of thee and shit like that. But I'm not one of those people. I don't bow down to jingoism. Jingoism doesn't impress me. Phony patriotism don't impress me. Songs and symbols and shit like that don't really impress me. It is actions that impress me. Whether or not you're striving to make this country better, and I don't mean better for a few individuals or a few groups, better for everyone. That's what impresses me. So yeah, so the beginning of the speech was filled with all of this bullshit. Then we get to policy. Okay, you know, before I get to policy, let me say one more thing about the platitudes. Putting up token Negroes don't impress me at all either. And I'm not trying to talk bad about any of the black folks that he featured themselves. I hate the way they were used as props towards his fascist worldview and the way of looking at things. And I'm going to get to that in a second. So, on to fascism. So, it talks about the tax cuts and how, all these companies were giving all these bonuses and wages were rising all of a sudden because of his policies. Well, one thing, the tax cuts only passed like what, a month ago? 6 weeks ago? And they don't go into effect for another year at least. And it's incremental. A year from now, a little bit of this comes on, and a year from now, a year from that, a little bit more, and then by the time I think it's by the time it's said and done, I think it's like 10 years later or some shit like that, where the package is complete, and now we're at something permanent and stable and steady. So, and the tax season just begun. The income tax season. So they're like, now all these people are getting more money, all these bonuses and these raises and whatnot because of these tax cuts. That's bullshit. And I just wanted to say that's bullshit right there. I talked to people at Walmart. And I said, hey, how you like that raise you're getting? I hear you guys getting $1,000 a year raises. Oh, well, this is a store full of maybe like tens, maybe at least 100 employees. There's one store. Well, only 4 people here got that. 4 people? What do you mean 4 people got it? I thought, no, you have to be here you have to have been working here for damn near 20 years. How many people work at Walmart for damn near 20 years? Walmart, because they pay so low and because they don't necessarily treat their employees with dignity and everything, because they don't necessarily give them great benefits, Walmart employees only stay 5 or so years. They have a high turnover rate. Because you work at Walmart, you actively looking for something better, something that you can actually make a career out of. And I don't think you can make a career out of Walmart. Working at Walmart is, in this sense. Now, I'm not trying to down people who work at Walmart. I'm not trying to down people who work at Walmart, but in this sense. And I'm not even trying to down people who work at fast food. I think I think both of them are important. I think both of them do a really hard job, dealing with the public. I think both of them should, deserve that they deserve living wages, that they deserve raises. But it's akin to working at fast food, because it is, for a lot, it's considered an entry-level position. It is an unskilled position. And it is a position that, and more importantly, is a position that don't pay well. You cannot necessarily take care of yourself and your spouse and, 2.5 kids and a dog on a Walmart salary. But, a lot of those people didn't get raises. And I can say from my own experience, that a lot of times when politicians tell the people that this money right here is going to go towards raises or whatever, they don't. They go towards other shit. We had a proposition not too long ago here in the city of St. Louis about giving raises to first responders. I didn't see that raise, and I'm not going to get that raise. It's not going to happen. We have a saying amongst us: we'll believe it when we see it. Because there's been a lot of promises made, and most of them don't come true. Most of them are not kept. So there's all this fluff about the taxes, and he doesn't mention that Walmart did give raises, but they closed a bunch of Sam's locations that, you know, they laid off a bunch of workers or fired a bunch of workers, that, you know, other companies laid off and fired workers. So there's no talk about that. Just like, you know, hey, look at what I've done. Then we get to probably the most angering part of speech. And that's the part of the speech in which he talks about immigration. And that there needs to be a compromise in immigration because nobody's going to get everything that they want. But it was littered in xenophobic, white supremacist bullshit that even like during, I think, David Duke gave him a thumbs up for what he was saying. We could keep the 1.8 million dreamers here if we stop, quote, chain immigration, unquote, which is basically family reunification. And we provide a bunch of money towards this wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for. Remember that? Mexico was supposed to pay for it. We weren't supposed to pay a thing. Now the Republicans and conservatives, whatever, they talk so much shit about Barack Obama. Oh, the deficit is supposed to go up under him, and the projected deficit is going up. What has Trump done recently? The tax cuts, the deficit is going to go up by $2 trillion. This wall that we don't need is going to increase the deficit. This military spending that we don't need is going to increase the deficit. But the Republicans and conservatives only care about the deficit when it is a Democrat in office. That's the only time they care about it. When it's one of them, you can spend as much money as you want to. And that's the reason why one time, I think it was maybe on Bill Maher's show, Real Time, Neil deGrasse Tyson, NDT, stated that NASA actually does better when there's Republicans in office because they can spend money and won't nobody say a word about it. And they spend more money than the Democrats do, because if the Democrats spend that same amount of money, then it's going to be spun to the public as, you see those Democrats, those taxes spend liberals. So, but when he likened immigrants, and you know, he didn't explicitly do this, so I don't want people coming on the comment section of this video talking about, oh, you know, well, he didn't say that. No, he didn't explicitly say it, but he likened the immigrants to pests. And in the way that he did it was like, hey, you know, if there's one of them, they're gonna bring their mother and their father and their sister and their brother and blah 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 blah, and you're gonna, you know, in a year's time you're gonna have hundreds of them. It sounds like the way people talk about roaches or termites or mice or rats or ants, gnats, possums, whatever the fuck gets into your house or whatever and starts breeding. And it's wrong. And then to shamelessly use a black family and their tragedy to go against immigrants and dreamers. Their situation with MS-13 is tragic. It's very tragic, and I feel bad for them. But MS-13 don't represent a majority of immigrants. A lot of those people in MS-13 or whatever are second generations, third generations degenerate people. They're not immigrants, most of them. And even if they are, they represent a small population of immigrants. It's like when people talk about black people, whatever, they mention Bloods and Crips and shit like that. You know, the same type of racist, bigoted bullshit rhetoric. And to be quite honest with you, that's when I got sick. I got physically sick. Now, before anybody says anything, I know that, let's say in the case of Mexicans, that Mexicans and blacks or whatever, a lot of times in a lot of places haven't been the best of friends. You know, that there are racist Mexicans and there are xenophobic black folks. And I know that, you know, there's been animosity between Mexican immigrants and black folks or whatever in different places. But to use that animosity as a wedge between black folks and Mexicans is bullshit. Because as far as I'm concerned, we're both people of color. And we need to work together to go against white supremacy. But that's a whole nother topic right there. There's a whole nother video. But, you know, yeah, you brought out all these tokens to basically say, you know, tell the world, like, hey, I'm not a racist. Look, I brought out a black family. I brought out a black guy who worked for this company or whatever, who, you know, they really liked me. And, you know, I brought out this Latino who works for ICE and, you know, works hard at keeping other Latinos out. It was shameful. It was very, very shameful. And there was a lot of stuff like that. I mean, I can go on and on about this, but I don't want to make this video too long. So I endured this all this or whatever. It was really hard. And the last time I ever wanted to commit harakiri, Japanese ritual suicide, while watching something was when I watched God Is Not Dead, the first one. Or God's Not Dead, whatever the fuck it's called. This time I didn't even want to commit Japanese ritual suicide. I just wanted somebody to just fucking blow my brains out because it was that painful to watch. I appreciate the scorn on Nancy Pelosi's face. The scowl, if you will. The mean mugging that she did. I appreciate the same thing with Cory Booker. I appreciate the kente cloths and the African patterns that the Congressional Black Caucus donned out of protest for the whole shithole country comment. But on the Democratic side, what I've seen, I saw maybe a few people applauding, and you know, the thing is that when he goes to platitudes and he goes to like fascist rhetoric, you don't applaud that shit. I was actually waiting, and I would have poured a lot of money into any Democrat who just simply walked the fuck out of that speech, and maybe even put up a middle finger as he or she was doing so. I'm not impressed by the whole not clapping thing or whatever. Everybody's done it or whatever. The past umpteen State of the Union addresses that I watched, that's been the playbook. I'm not going to clap for you. I wanted more resistance. And like I said, I saw Democrats, some of them, not a lot of them, but some of them clapping at certain times, and I'm like, you don't clap for this guy. Not for any. I don't care what type of rosy fucking God bless America shit or whatever he comes up with. You don't fucking clap, because it's bullshit. And I know Democrats are trying to look good in front of cameras, and you know, I'm gonna look good for my moderate / conservative voters or whatever, that, fuck them. They brought us this bullshit. Democrats will win more votes from these moderates, these independents, if they act like fucking Democrats, than by always playing it safe. But again, that's a whole nother video. The thing that was most disappointing, though, about the Democrats or whatever was their rebuttal, their response to the State of the Union address. Now, I have nothing against Joe Kennedy. I didn't go into the State of the Union address thinking to myself that, hey, I don't like Joe Kennedy. I don't like the fact that he's rich. I don't like the fact that he's white. I don't like the fact... I didn't go into it like that. And I don't give a fuck about him being rich. And I don't give a fuck about him being white or whatever. I don't give a fuck about any of those things. Only thing I care about is whether he can identify, whether he can relate to what's going on. Whether he can sympathize with what's going on. And use that identification and that sympathy for real action. That's what I care about. What he gave us was more platitudes and anecdotes and the same stale bullshit speech that I've heard over and over again. It wasn't even well delivered. You're too afraid to call Trump a fucking liar, which he is. You don't want to give the people real numbers. And you want to talk about people. I know a person in Ohio who was, okay, that's cool. But we're not talking about that person in Ohio. We're talking about the whole fucking country. The only saving grace of last night was Bernie Sanders. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, another Bernie bot, another Bernie bro. You want Bernie Sanders to run in 2020? Not exactly. I don't think I want Bernie Sanders to run in 2020. If he does, I will vote for him. Unless there's somebody younger and who has the same fire and the same ideas as Bernie Sanders. But I'm not looking for Bernie Sanders to run in 2020. But he stated what needed to be stated. He called Trump a liar. He came out with numbers. He came out with statistics. He knew what the fuck he was talking about, and he didn't run to platitudes. There was no God bless America at the end of the speech. It was like goodbye. There was no let me speak in Spanish moment. Because Latinos would love it if I just spoke to them in Spanish for a couple of sentences rather than fucking fight for immigration, fair immigration, moral immigration, the same immigration for Latinos and Africans and Asians that people from Europe enjoyed, including Jews. The same type of immigration. No one gave a fuck about taking jobs or whatever, when it was the Irish, when it was the Italians. Maybe white folks against white folks, but they didn't give a fuck about taking black jobs. Now all of a sudden, when there's brown folks and there's other black folks, there's yellow folks, it's all about, jobs. That's bullshit. The only saving grace last night was Bernie Sanders. Democrats need to wake up. You don't compromise with evil. You don't compromise with fascists. You resist them. You don't play it safe with them. You resist. That's what you do. That's what you do. Martin Luther King, in his letter from a Birmingham jail, stated that the biggest enemy to progress wasn't the hardliners, the Ku Klux Klan and whatnot. It was the white moderate. Because they tried to parent us. And they tried to say, hey, you know, don't fight for freedom right now. Don't fight for it to get on, you know, out the back of the bus. Don't fight to be served at lunch counters and whatnot. Don't fight for full integration. Just take a little bit at a time. Imagine, if you will, if the civil rights movement was carried out like that. If Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders compromised with people like Bull Connor or forgot the governor of Alabama at the time or whatever. I forgot his name. But you know, all the bad guys during that time. Imagine if they compromised on that. You don't compromise with evil. You resist it. That's it for my video this day. It's already run a little bit too long. I really would like it, you know, to hear any feedback from you guys. Comment down below. Press subscribe to get more of these videos. I plan on making videos at least once a week, and trying to give you my opinion on various topics. More videos to come. So please press subscribe to my channel. Like if you like this video, like if you don't like this video, dislike. You know, do whatever you have to. I would like to hear from you. I do read your comments. I may not reply to your comments, but I do read them.